City at the moment. And joining me to discuss this is a partner, oil and gas leader at Deloitte Nigeria, Mr. Olumide Eson. Thank you so much. It's good to have you on the program.
It's good to be here this afternoon.
Yes. First, let's take it back a little and talk about the subsidy removal thing. Many would say it's a demand and supply market, and of course they expect maybe this flip-flop. But some are not thinking that the price of PMS might still continue to go on the high side. We started with about 500 naira. At the moment, in some places, we've been selling for more than 600 naira. What really is reflecting here? What are we seeing playing out here?
Thank you. And so again, I think you already addressed the issue yourself. It's all about market factors. So you really can't predict what will be the exact price through the year. It will depend on the market movement, particularly of the price of crude oil, which is a function of demand and supply, but also geopolitics. So, but what we've seen over the years is you see that fluctuation, from high to the lows. But oftentimes, the refiners, we see that the margin is adjusted at the refinery level. So that fluctuation of the crude oil price itself doesn't have that exact amount of fluctuation when it comes to the pump price of petroleum products. Because what happens is sometimes refiners benefit, sometimes they don't benefit. But again, looking at Nigeria, subsidy was hurting our economy in as much as it makes life easy in some ways. But from the analysis that we did earlier, you would see that in the article release, we have budgeted 18,000 naira per capita for subsidy for the first 6 months of 2023, whereas for the full year of 2023, we budgeted, there about 9,000 naira per capita for health and 6,000 for education. So if you would project, the subsidy for a full year would amount to 36,000 naira per capita. So how can a country, budget 36,000 naira per capita for subsidy and budget, a quarter of that, 9,000 for health, and even 1/6 of that, 6,000 naira per capita for education? So it was an inevitable thing that happened, but then as a nation, we then need to move forward. We need some intervention from government to ensure that we can all deal with the consequences of removing subsidy.
A good way to start, but I'm going to ask you again that some are saying that this move has actually clearly exposed that issue around consumption level. What we consume on a daily basis. Let's look at this basis. At the time, it was projected to be more than 50 million liters a day, about 60 even at a point. But as of today, major marketers are saying, no, we are not doing more than 30 to 40 million. What's your take with regards to that, and how do you think subsidy removal has impacted this? Talking about level of usage and consumption of PMS.
Yeah, so thanks. Prior to the removal, NNPC would typically tell us that we consume, or we live between 65 and 68 million liters a day. Of course, with the removal of subsidy, that number has dropped to there about 40 million liters a day. Now, what are contributing factors to that reduction? I think the biggest factor is the fact that with market pricing and parity, there is little incentive to smuggle across the border, right? And even if you do smuggle across the border, the margin is not sufficient for that risk. So if you're going to be able to sell it just slightly above the cost price in Nigeria, then the travels, the travails, the risk just not worth it. That is the most significant factor. Smuggling actually decreased. But there is also the other factor, also the fact that when things are more expensive, people put on the economic hat when they are using or utilizing such resources. So that's the reduction obviously in the amount of fuel consumption per average car in Nigeria for the average Nigerian, because then we are mindful what you do with your car, when to switch on the AC, when to switch off the AC. So there is, that slight auto reduction in terms of, local consumption in our cars. But by far, the largest, factor is the smuggling bits that went down.
Now, let's talk about merits and demerits of subsidy removal. I'd like us to highlight it because the challenges Nigerians face at the moment, they think that the demerits now outshine the merits of it.
So I always like to start with the merits, and there are just very, few but very significant merits that I'd like to talk about. One is the fact that we can see us as a nation of the burden of almost, 7.2 trillion that will have to use to subsidize, fuel this year. If you have 3.6 trillion for the first 6 months, that's 7.2 for the full year. For a nation which we already kind of said we would use 73% of our 10 trillion expected earnings this year to service debt. We're going to use, 73% to service debt. I mean, the question is we can't afford subsidy. So that burden being taken in from the government ensures that, that fund is redirected. It's redirected towards infrastructure, towards the healthcare system, towards education. And of course, it would help to reduce the borrowing. Already, we have a 37% debt to GDP ratio, which is already on the high side. We're closer to 40% to GDP than we've ever been. If we do not, take this heat of subsidy, we see us surpassing, 40% in debt to GDP. So I think it's important that we save that money and we deploy it to the productive sector of the economy. We deploy the productive sector of the economy, we also put it in infrastructure, advanced transportation systems. And look, these are not going to happen overnight. But that is, for me, the first real advantage, real merit of removing subsidy. The second thing is, each time you have subsidy in the mix, means there is regulated pricing. And, investors will always be reluctant to invest. You don't want to build refinery worth billions of dollars when the selling price is controlled by government. Sure that there is investment in the downstream, which requires a lot of infrastructure, including, pipelines and pipeline networks across the country. That's why Section 205 of the CIA provides for cost-reflective, pricing in the downstream. Let people pay the right price for the product. That way, government won't have to be shouldering the burden of downstream investment. Private individuals, private investors, local and international, will bring the funds to invest if they know, that the prices won't be controlled by the government. And of course, the tool of that is the FX regulation, because if people are going to bring in foreign direct investment to the country, they must also be guaranteed that when they're ready to exit, they can exit as well at the prevailing rate and not at the controlled rate. So for me, these are really very huge merits of removing subsidies. I think the third one is, each time there's subsidy, there's always a potential for corruption, there's always a potential for mismanagement. So by eliminating subsidy altogether, we can deal with corruption once and for all. So I think if we look at these three merits, the worth celebration that we remove subsidy. However, there is a cost. Okay, and if you look at the article we shared the other time, we said short-term gain and long-term gain. That there are things in short term, and one of it is the fact that we see increased cost of transportation, and of course, what that has meant is general prices have gone up, so people are dealing with the inflationary effect of that removal of subsidy. It's now more expensive to move from point A to point B, and in general, it has led to a cost of living crisis, for a number of Nigerians, and that is why it is important that the government must do something immediately, to assuage those, concerns of inflation and erosion of the value of living in Nigeria. So I'm happy at the statement by the president today, because that shows that he's also listening, because we as Nigerians We are complaining, we are shouting because we are feeling the heat, we are feeling the effect of the removal of fuel subsidy.
Interesting. Inflation will also rise as we move on, of course, in the subsequent months. And that is what some are also worried about. And if that happens, and minimum wage is also increased on the other side, what sort of figures do you think will end this year with? Talking about inflation figures now, and MPC has been trying one way or the other to rein in inflation, and they are increasing rates, which seems not to be working too. So where do we strike a balance?
So although the line was a bit cracky, but I think what you're talking about is inflation, right?
Yes.
In fact, and also the fact that when salaries are increased, when wages are increased, it also, aggravates inflation.
Perfect.
Yeah, I mean, it's a painful one. The month before, that May, we had 22.41. Last month, we moved up to, 22.79. And of course, there are fears that it could escalate further. The reality is that we've always been on that upward trajectory for some time now in terms of inflation. But I believe the secret to arresting that is investing in productive sector of the economy. Because what drives inflation in economics 101 is if there are a lot more demand than supply. So we have, if you look at our own inflation, our food inflation basket, you see that the biggest chunk is actually food and the food basket. So if we can control the inflation on food, then general inflation can turn downwards. And I think that is why you see in the speech yesterday, the president is focused, 200 billion committed to agriculture, 50 billion committed to grains, rice and maize, and another 50 billion, committed to wheat and cassava. If we can bring down the cost of food prices, because it's weighted in the basket, you see that the general inflation will taper down a little. But having said that, the concerns are real. There is the sentiment that each time there is a wage increase that we tend to see, inflation on the rise. I think that will need to be managed by government. And I like the various, interventions being rolled out, the transportation system across the country, 3,000 of them, conditional grant, cash transfers, subventions to nano, small and medium companies. The big, some 5 billion available for 75, manufacturing companies. I think that time, and we would see a reversal of the inflation trend. But again, just like every other thing with economics, it does not happen overnight. We need to be carefully mapped out, and there has to be discipline in execution of the various intervention measures that the government is rolling out. But, I also recognize that, we're dealing with massive, increase in interest rates because, of course, it's been, following the rates in NPR over the months by the CBN. Once we start to that interest rates will start to go down as well, hopefully, the NPR rate will start to go down, and then we see economic activity starts to bump up again in Nigeria. So it's a pain that we all must go through in this short-term period. But let's look at the big picture, which is the long-term gain. In my view, for us as Nigerians, we need to hold our leaders accountable. If they are giving us their words, they feel our things, they're doing it in our best interest, let us also hold them to those things they said they will do. So that, this time next year, they won't be saying to us, bear the pain. Okay? If they said bear the pain now, we will bear the pain. But, don't come back to us next year and tell us a different story. We want you to do all the things you have promised to do so that the economy can expand. If the economy expands, a lot more Nigerians will be more productive, and then you will see that will be a general living wage increase, which doesn't even need to be sponsored by government, because you see private companies already, the president recognized that yesterday, there are private companies that have increased wages already. But you see, these things are all tied to productivity of the economy. An economy that is shrinking, that is not producing, will always struggle with funds. And that is where we do not want to be as a nation. Government, in addition to this intervention, This also creates the enabling environment for small businesses to thrive. It's a good, it's a good start to have this, 125, billion dedicated to nano, small and medium enterprises. It's a good one to have some 5 billion available for manufacturing companies. But government needs to go beyond that, to create an enabling environment. The CNG buses, one stone killing two birds. One is an indirect, intervention, but also it helps Nigeria to play in the space of energy transition, because we all know eventually we want to use fossils when the time comes. But at this time, let's leverage on our huge deficit of natural gas to industrialize our economy, but also in our transportation system. We already use it in power. We can do more, but we need to harness all the resources we have to get Nigeria to that place where we want it to be, where we can compete with developed nations across the world.
Well, interesting way to live it. But if we can do this in just 2 minutes, I'd like to ask you, in the implementation of the PIA, the regulation and all of that, analysts have argued that removal of subsidy is just the face of the regulation. So where are we with regards to the regulation? You would understand that better.
So first, we need to look at the PIA from the construct of the value chain. So we've got the upstream, the midstream, and the downstream. Largely for a long time, the upstream has been deregulated. Companies pay market price for labor, for equipment, and contractors to produce, which they then dispose of the hydrocarbon. I think, the issue, we've been looking at deregulation in the context of what is new in deregulation, is largely in the midstream and the downstream. So, for example, you see government-controlled enterprise like NNPC now being registered as a company under Matter Act company, and the idea is with time, government control will reduce. Eventually, when government has to sell down shares in the companies currently held by Ministry of Finance Incorporated and Ministry of Petroleum Resources Incorporated. But the bigger picture is particularly in the downstream, where the subsidy has been, and that is really where the regulation needs to happen fast, so that all the infrastructure held by government, some of the gas infrastructure, can be commercialized. Already they're working on that. I know that there can be a lot more competition, because what we want to achieve by regulation is, one, to avoid subsidy, and then two, to create constructive competition, which is what we're trying to work towards the midstream and the downstream of the Nigerian petroleum sector.
I must thank you so much for your time, partner Deloitte, Salomide Son. Do enjoy the rest of your day. We're glad to have you back. In a nationwide broadcast by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, he says, our economy is going through a tough patch and you're being hurt by it because the fuel has gone up, food and other prices have followed it. Households and businesses have followed. Households and businesses struggle, things seem anxious and uncertain. Now, according to him, again, he said he understands the hardship, and he's also wishing that there are other ways to face and, of course, address all of these issues. Now, let's talk to Mr. Sheung Onegbide, who's a co-founder with Budget Nigeria, for us to break down the issues raised in this document. He joins me live from the United States of America. Mr. Onegbide, thank you so much. I understand the time factor. It's really good to see you.
And so thank you so much.
Yes. First, the president is letting Nigerians know that he's a listening one, considering the fact that he signed 4 executive orders even before coming up with this speech of support to the manufacturing and other sectors. First, how would you rate or assess his reaction to all of these issues since we got subsidy off the shelf?
I think, in my own view, there's a bit of interest to discuss the effects of subsidy removal. I was one of the few people that felt that the subsidy should not have been removed in so much hurry. I mean, there was a lot of pace, and I immediately made that speech. and everything just moved quickly that the subsidy has been removed. In his words, says subsidy is gone. And I think the market just reacted effectively to that. And we're considering that we even still had appropriation in quotes till end of June. So it looks like they're chasing a moving wagon. They're trying to fix things. They're trying to figure out how to manage the after effects of such decision. It's not an easy one because we know the inflationary effects of first subsidy removal. Some of them are grounded in fact, some of them are driven by emotions. But the reality is that prices of goods and commodities are higher than what it used to be in a few months ago. So it's only in that situation by providing some form of palliatives and some form of support to those who are going to feel the brunt of first subsidy removal. But I don't think those support mechanisms are adequate. I don't think they're holistic. But at least it's engaging with Nigerians on this issue, which also means that he sees and he understands and he hears the effects of first subsidy removal. I think we have to take that one as a win from this situation. But when you look at some of the things that he has proposed, they don't sound realistic. It doesn't sound as if there's some quality diagnosis of the issue or the challenges that people are facing in our own view.
75 billion naira for 75 enterprises for at 9% rate for manufacturers. Some manufacturers or even the manufacturers associations already commending the president today because we hear of manufacturing companies exiting the country because of challenges of course relating to funding, infrastructure and all of that. So don't you see this helping more of them stay in?
Good. I mean, 75 billion for manufacturers, a billion naira for 75 firms, at the discounted rate. Would that change the tide significantly? I don't think so. I think the intervention for that sector is far more than that. And it's very important that it begins to accelerate holistic solutions. So if you ask manufacturers, what is their problem? Access to export market will be a problem. The access to FX market is a problem. If you ask them, they will tell you that issues around power, energy, infrastructure are the biggest challenges. So if you are going to help the manufacturing sector, it will not just be about giving support just to a few firms, 75 of them, in the midst of the number. I mean, look at the number of manufacturing firms that we have in Nigeria. So my advice has always been focus on systemic issues. As a way out of this. Some of them you will do some targeted support. When you are trying to support, do those targeted support, make sure that they are systemic in nature. For example, public transport system that provides alternative to the commercial vehicles. So if you're able to deliver on that, that will be much more effective. Or you also look at the students. Primary students, secondary school students, university students, whose parents are going to feel the biggest brunt of this issue. So how do you even partner with state governments to ensure that students can have free access or cheap access to move around, especially to go to school and come back? So when you do things like that, you ameliorate, you reduce the pressure of parents, especially poor parents in a way. Something like that doesn't mean that you're giving cash. Because anything that comes about giving cash to people in Nigeria, we know how that ends. It is politicized, it is underwhelming. At the end of the day, we lack accountability and you will still not get value for money. But if you focus on things around accelerating a new minimum wage at the federal level and also encouraging states to do so, and even incentivizing states to do so, you focus about accelerating the infrastructure. You have put a pocket, a part of the infrastructural fund, you put that aside. So how do you ensure that you work with state government to make sure that's effectively operationalized? You're doing food inflation. How do you resolve logistics around food inflation so that wherever is being produced in Taraba, Benue, and all the whole food baskets of the country at a reasonable margin level comes to the market across the country? Those are the things you want to put in play first. Because whenever it comes to distribution, most times we don't have a proper holistic framework for distribution. It gets suboptimal at the end of the day. And the Buhari administration did this so well. and at the end of the day, the results were still underwhelming. Sometimes when you look at socioeconomic factors like poverty and the rest. So for me, what you need to do now is to focus on systemic issues and also act in solidarity. People look at the cost of governance and they still act. We are feeling the pain, and you guys also feeling the pain. So he also has to be assertive as a president, especially with the National Assembly and every other government. That the time for the party is over. This is actually the time to serve and work for Nigerians.
Amos, thank you so much for your contributions as usual. Co-founder, Chief Executive Officer, Budget and Solution Unibide, thank you so much for your time. We really do appreciate this. Well, indeed, that's our offering for you today. Thank you so much for being a part of it.
Politics is defined as getting what, where, when, and how. But in the mix, many things come to play to shape the political fortune of any country.
Mr. Honorable Minister, inform the public.
From the political actors to the electorate, campaign to voting, from debates to policy decisions, big events happen to engage us in constant conversation.
That's what we're looking for. Not some people who are
set issues that shape our political destiny. Politics Tonight, weekdays on TVC News.
Join me, Precious Amayo, as I bring you news from the epicenter, where it happens and when it happens. Staying on top of every breaking story, minute by minute, right at the hour when the city gets busy and just before it sleeps. We're live from every angle with objective insights and analysis. TVC News, first the breaking news.
wherever you see destruction, it's because God is absent. There is no destruction in God. So who started killing from Genesis? Satan. Jesus exposed him. The thief cometh not, but for to steal, to kill, and to destroy. But I am come that you may have life and have it how much? More abundant. I prophesy as your amen is coming like thunder. Whatever is yours, receive it now.
For God so loved the world, and he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever believeth in should not perish, but have everlasting life. In Proverbs 28 verse 13, the Bible says, he that covereth his sin shall not prosper. But whosoever confess them and forsake them shall have mercy. Unbelief is sin, unforgiveness is sin, selfishness is sin. I want to let you know pride is sin, contention, strife, giving malice, bearing grudge, lusting after evil things, covetousness, love of money, love of the world, insincerity, disobedience, blasphemy, anger, envy, speaking evil of other people, backbiting, murmuring, cursing people, swearing with heaven and earth. All these are terrible sins. You must confess them, renounce them, and promise God no more.
Never miss a moment. Instant breaking news from all over the globe. Live streaming of your favorite programs delivered directly to you.